Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Capitol Square. I'm Jim Heath. Ohio Governor Ted Strickland won election easily 4 years ago, but then the recession came and Ohio was hit hard. In total, over 400,000 jobs were lost, and in that environment, it was not shocking that Strickland lost his re-election bid. But the governor remains upbeat. Here he took us down to the cafeteria to order up some pancakes and talk about the fact that incoming Governor John Kasich has chosen not to set up his office in the State House. We'll have more on that later. First, our farewell interview with Governor Strickland begins with a conversation about the 2010 campaign. Governor, good to see you.
It's good to see you.
From our conversation a year ago today, where we sat in this office and looked ahead to campaign 2010, as you look back, is there any strategy, anything differently that you think that you could have done that would have been worth a point or two that would have flipped the election results around in your favor?
I've thought of that, and really, I can't think of anything that we could have done that we didn't do. Perhaps there are things, and you can always, I guess, second guess yourself, but I worked hard, we tried as best we could, we fell short, the people have spoken, and you move on.
Some people are a little surprised when you came out of the gate with the television advertising that it was pretty negative. Well, not pretty negative, it was negative right out of the gate. Rather than kind of highlight your personal popularity, the fact that Ohioans like you very much, that's never been an issue. Was that, again, we're kind of fine-tuning here, but we're talking the difference of just, a few thousand votes or a percentage point or two. Do you think the tone was set angry too soon? Could that have been part of the problem?
I don't know if it was angry. It was an attempt on my part to introduce Mr. Kasich to the people of Ohio, because quite frankly, during most of that year, he was pretty stealth. He did not answer questions. He was not available to the media, and the people of Ohio really didn't know him. And I felt that he was going to try to win the election by simply making it about me and 400,000 jobs being lost. And I felt the people of Ohio needed to know information about him, his background, the fact that he had been on Wall Street and in my judgment was complicit, or his company certainly was, complicit in the economy that we were dealing with. I think if I had not done that, the winning margin may have been much greater. It's hard to know for sure.
Right.
Because I can't go back and redo it, I've decided to not spend a whole lot of time thinking about it.
He ended up with less than half the vote. Is there a mandate there? I mean, how do you interpret what was the message, and what would be your advice for any governor, whomever it is, that goes into office with less than half the vote?
Yeah. Well, I received a higher percentage when I was elected, I think over 60%. I never considered that an indication that I could just do whatever I wanted to do. I think you're always in better shape if you try to be a little more humble about your situation and your standing with the people. I think the fact that this election was fairly close and that Mr. Kasich received less than 50% of the vote is an indication that the voters were not necessarily embracing his agenda or even his party's philosophy.
Did you get the sense that maybe he interprets it that way?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to know. It's hard to get inside someone else's thinking and motivation. But the fact is that the voters were rightly angry and upset and frustrated. People who have worked hard, done everything right, tried to provide for their families, been a good citizen, paid their taxes, contributed to charities. Hundreds of thousands of such people in our state have found themselves unemployed or without health care or anxious about the future, wondering if they can take care of their kids. And they've done nothing wrong. And so I understand that frustration and that anger. I experience it myself. I've got members of my family who are unemployed. looking for a job, anxious about the future. So I don't feel separated or apart from folks who are dealing with those circumstances.
You actually said during the campaign that you thought it was going to be pivotal that you relay that you got it, that you relay that you understood that pain, that was going to be the real key to the re-election.
And I may have told you that I thought if I could convey to the voter that I understood them and what they were going through, that I would likely win. So apparently I wasn't as successful at that as I hoped to be.
A couple other very quick questions on the campaign mode. Some states require a 50% win, 50% plus one. Would that be a good idea for Ohio?
I don't think so.
No. And secondly, the cost of campaigns in the state have gone up 75% since the 1990s. Just this proliferation of money, particularly special interest money, flooding in from Washington and other places. Anything we can do about that? Or is that just, I mean, can a kid today on Duck Run look ahead and think, I could someday run for governor and be a viable candidate?
Well, I have an interesting history of running for political office. By the way, I've lost 5 races in my career. 3 of those were my first 3 races for Congress. And in that first race, I spent, I think, about $32,000. In 1992, when I actually won a seat in Congress, I spent somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000 to $180,000.
So you did it the old-fashioned grassroots, get your name on the ballot and get some name ID before.
Listen, I want to tell you, we were having people bringing in scrap pieces of board and painting signs, literally. The year in 1992 when I won, we had, people just bringing in pieces of plywood and painting signs and so on. I don't know that you could be elected under those circumstances today. Congressional campaigns and every campaign has become so costly.
Is it television? I mean, what's fueling that? I mean, how do you stop that?
I don't know that you can stop it. I think it's a problem. I think it's something that we ought to be concerned about. I don't know what the solution is, because the courts have basically said that money is free speech. And so they are very hesitant to actually put limits on how much can be spent in campaigns. And as long as that's the case, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to constrain. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the best solution is, quite frankly. Certainly transparency, making sure that dollars that are given, and I think we've got a problem when there are groups now that can collect money from unknown sources, spend that money, not identify themselves. I think that's problematic.
A couple quick questions on this transition time period. You and your successor kind of sniping through the media and what have you, whether it's calamity days, whether you should be appointing people in this lame duck session. And then there's the train. Just for a quick clarifier here, because I think there was some misunderstanding. When you said that you regretted the train or his decision on the train more than anything else, I mean, as you pointed out earlier, 400,000 jobs have been lost in the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. You weren't suggesting that the train was the dominant issue or your biggest regret, or were you? I mean, is that the biggest regret of the last 4 years?
No, I said it was one of the saddest days because that was a decision that was made that did not have to be made. Many of the terrible things that I dealt with were things that weren't under any individual's control.
Kind of national factors, the economy, what have you.
Yeah, but the fact is, this was $400 million that would have created a lot of jobs. And I still do not understand why we gave that money to California and Florida.
Was there ever any phone call, was there ever any solicitation of kind of privately from Mr. Kasich about what is this? And
No.
So there was never any kind of follow-up. I mean, that decision just seemingly was made on the campaign trail and then not re-examined afterwards.
Yeah, I think sometimes things like that happen during campaigns. Positions are taken, and then it's difficult to back out. But there's a reason why you know, why the Republican governor of Florida wants that money, and the Republican governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was asking for it. Even Mitch Daniels, our neighbor in Indiana, is getting about $300,000 of that money. These Republican governors apparently see the benefit of spending that money and creating jobs and developing an infrastructure. You know, a businessman talked to me after the decision was made and told me that they were prepared to invest $200 million into development near one of the proposed stations. That's private sector investment. The freights, the freight companies were in support of it because they knew the freight system would be enhanced. The crossings would be modernized and made more safe for Ohioans. I think it was likely, I really believe it was likely, that had we proceeded, Ohio would have gotten a company to actually build passenger rail cars in Ohio, creating manufacturing jobs. So I think that $400 million was the tip of the iceberg. I think it would have led to a lot of private sector investment that would have been good for our state. And so, you know, the decision's been made. Other states are benefiting from our money right now.
And you still don't quite get it.
Yeah, I still don't get it, but we need to move on.
And when we come back, we will talk to the governor about his political future and Troopergate.